second day of the Chamber Festival going.
Yay!
Hope everybody is enjoying their lessons and coachings. And now we're going to have a class focused on composition for performers, like all of you. I know there are some composers in here, but I don't know a lot of people. Maybe of you might have not composed before. I don't know. I know when I was a music student, it was kind of compartmentalized. So you'd have performers in one area, composers in another area, and people doing theory over there. And to me, it's all connected. And I think that we should all be doing composition. We should be performing. If you're a performer, you are a good composer for your instrument, and so you can contribute to the tradition. And so you have to get out of the fear of for me, it was playing some of the world's greatest music. Why would I want to even try? And then I had to get over that and say, I'm going to do it anyway. And it's a very rewarding thing. You know, it doesn't have to be a Beethoven sonata to be worthwhile. So anyway, our guest today is this wonderful man. He's one of my teachers, and he's a great composer. He was on the faculty of Arizona State University for a long time as a composition and theory teacher, and he has written many wonderful works. We've premiered a couple of them here at Oracle Center for the Arts that he's written, and so he'll share a lot of his wisdom with you. He's also provided all of the resources from his classes that are linked on your master document, and that's going to be a treasure trove of information for many years of experience teaching and composing. But I would like to welcome Dr. James DeMars to the stage now. So
Yes, I'll use the microphone. I'm not that good at it. But one of the main reasons for me to be here is to especially talk to you guys because you're performers. And that's really very, very important because you understand the value of the performance. And I was trying to figure out just how to begin to explain these things. I noticed, a musical life, I should just say a life, is full of what we hope are peak experiences. And for much of my life, it seems like a long life now, I and my friends would say, what is the biggest thrill we can have? What's the most fun we can have? What would be the most exciting thing we could do? And we'd work together to try and accomplish that. By doing that, there were all sorts of new avenues opened up. And for me, it's the only reason I got a job and was able to keep doing music. Now, I have to stand back here to show you a few things, but I'm going to bounce back and forth, I hope, between things. We'll see how they, I hope this comes up. Oh, here. Yeah. So this is 1977 or so. Is that showing up?
Yeah.
Should say Zeitgeist. Okay. That's, I had just gotten into, started grad school, was trying to figure out how to survive in life. So these are my friends. There were two percussionists and myself. And we started working together to form an ensemble. They said, what can we do? I said, well, my cousin just did a recital in Carnegie Hall. She says you can just rent it. And that's true, you just rent it. And we were in a state that had a lot of funding for things like this, and so we were able to get a grant and do it. So we worked together and got that going and then did other things. Let me go through a few things. I hope this works. Okay, there's the program. And that was one ensemble. Then I came to Arizona and started another ensemble. You can see I was considerably younger at this stage, but this was an ensemble. These are like publicity shots because I started working with these guys, and we always worked on making recordings. I don't really understand the recording industry these days. It's so different. But in those days, making a recording And this was the ensemble that I built. And these fellows, every one of them, there are only three of us. In all cases, I wound up writing concertos for these people because they were my associates. And again, I'm talking to you as performers because I'm hoping that you will not go out and try and do everything on your own. Build a group of friends, an ensemble, whatever it takes to, you have a synergy, you work together, and you can create opportunities together. So these guys were in and of themselves, the other guys in and of themselves famous, and these concertos came from that. And this I always like, it's a great feeling when you're walking onto the stage. You know, it just is. One of the, here's concerto with Native Americans. And so it goes, there are other pictures. But now, given that you are, you can see that, given that you are performers, let's assume that you're able to find group, is it too low? Okay, well, just center. Which way does it go? Okay, I'll be struggling with this the next hour. Let's assume that you have a circle of friends or something. What can happen with that? Now, what I was saying is, the first thing, there is no such thing as the music police. You can do whatever you want. Absolutely. And people do. And sometimes they're like, God, why do they do that? And then the person next to you says, oh, I really love it. You just don't know. The only thing you know is what you feel on this. So that's what I'm saying. You can do anything you want. Here we go, how to compose. There are no rules. Do whatever you want. However, rule number one, you always complete what you start. If you adhere to that rule, you're going to be fine. And people say, but I sit down to write and I can't finish it. And that's when I only have half an hour, I can't finish. In my world, you can finish a composition in 5 minutes. Think about it for a moment. If you have some capacity to improvisation, you can't imagine how many jazz scores are created in the back of a napkin. You know, I'll play in C Dorian for 2 minutes, and then you start in a new key and we'll modulate and play it again and stop. That kind of stuff. That's a composition. It'll get you through that moment. But then what happens if you need more people and you want things to happen kind of at the same time? You need to organize the event. And that's when we get into, I skipped ahead here. I always say, always play, I'm going to come back to that. Always play your own music, that's the other thing. Some people will compose by putting dots on the page. Great. Those dots on the page are not the music. Even if it's a Mozart score. You say, well, it's Mozart, that's music. Yes, it is music. But the realization of that is far different, and you know that because you're performers. You know that when you sit down to play that Mozart, he's telling you that if you do this, it will basically work. But then when you go to take a piano lesson, what do they teach you? That phrase isn't shaped well. It's not expressive. There are all these qualities left. Those are the qualities that you have to understand enough to realize that what you produce as a composer initiates a process. And one of the other things I was going to show you, but I can just tell you, is that that's the reason I wound up conducting a lot of my own music. I had studied conducting. I always said, oh, I want to be a conductor composer. Well, I was 18, it sounded good. But the real point is, I studied enough so I know what I'm doing. And when I would create works for other, like an orchestra or something, often I had people step in and say, you're the composer, I'm the conductor, you do what I say and I'll tell you, we'll talk afterwards. And you listen to the piece being completely misconstrued. All of those intangible things from the score can be damaged. for that reason, I said, no, I'm gonna conduct my own music, at least the first time, to get that archival recording finished. That's the most critical thing, get it through to a recording. Then other people play it, or people you really like Stephen, having him play it. That's important. And the next thing kind of goes along with that. If you have other people, or if it's yourself, I would really recommend, I won't demand, I can't demand anything. I recommend that you schedule an event so that in your mind you know, you can start to picture it. That's the other thing is that you can say, I'm gonna write a piano quartet. Okay. I'm visualizing that in my mind. I'm sitting at the keyboard, I've got 3 other string players, let's say, with me. How is that music going? Where, what's going on there? You can start to visualize what's happening. And if you have a deadline, that means you're probably going to have some rehearsals, and the rehearsals you get the feedback, and the music starts happening, starts becoming something. All of those are generalizations. Let me see. I was saying, yeah, always complete the project. Let me come back to that one. In order to complete the project, by that I mean think it through from beginning to end. And you can sketch that out for yourself. Now, one of the things, ways to do that would be, I should have some sketches. Here. This is, can you see that? It's probably sideways here. See that? Yeah, you see some of it. This is a scrap of paper I have to recognize from years back. Let me see what that looks like. Yeah, okay. That's a timeline for a composition with dancers. And they don't have a critical thing. But this was improvisation. In this case, I was playing a synthesizer. We had to deal with these events would take place, so much time for each event. You just lay it out. Okay? Now, I have to be honest with you, it's pretty much the same process no matter what you do. But that's a graphic score or a timeline. Here's a verbal score. I think they're probably less effective. In this case, what was it? Wait, no, wrong sheet. Here it is. This one is just verbiage saying we're going to do these things. We'll work together. What are some things? We'd start with without a discernible rhythm by the second part or an 8/8, the rhythm's established. And so you start to shape an event and you think it through. But you would notice in all of these cases you're thinking from beginning through to the ending. So your concept of the composition is building. And if you say you start out by saying, what do I want to do? Let's say I want to write a piano piece. Well, then you're thinking about yourself going through that piano piece. And you do the same thing. What would I like to accomplish in that piece? What events, what moments can occur? Now, I've got them out of order. Here it is. I think that's it. Then we get into the part that people are more familiar with, which is, let me see here. Yeah. There are different approaches to a composition. And what I've talked about so far is what composers call a top-down approach, which is to say, I want to write some music. In your own mind, just imagine a piece you want to write. And what could it be? A piano concerto? A solo piano piece? An ensemble? Something for chorus and orchestra? Or just a choral piece? And there are all sorts of things that have to be accomplished in that process. If you want to write, one of the grand rules of thumb, if you want to write for a voice, the first thing you should do is memorize the text. So you carry it with you all the time. And it there's no magic formula for any of this. Maybe you find one method or another that works for you. Well, great, that works for you. Stick with it. Next year is coming and a new event will happen and you'll be composing more. You don't try and accomplish everything on the first piece. Now, with this top-down approach, you have a blank sheet of paper. I don't know if you have anything to write with, but I was thinking we could start one together.
Does anybody need a pencil?
Well, you don't necessarily need one. Um, oh, I don't know. Let me put it on the back one of these. Now, in this kind of approach, what you do is you've got a timeline. No matter what you do, a piece of music is going to begin and it's going to end. And that's inevitable. And you have to answer these inevitable questions eventually, right? You can't get around it. So, as I said earlier, if I had 5 minutes to create a piece, well, I'd say, well, I'm going to do this, that, and something else and call it quits. Look for a way to end the piece. And you're going to be overwhelmed with the number of ways that things can be done. To help you with that, when you're trying to figure out what you're going to put in here, we're going to come back to this blank line. Because now I'm going to take you to a different place. This isn't supposed to be here. So let's see what's here. Let's try and get, I don't even know what that said. I'm afraid. Let's see. Okay, we're getting into stuff here. Okay, you can see here, I think, in this area. I wish I could get rid of that. I don't know how. That's not right. I don't want to get past that. Do you see over here that's composition sources?
Yes.
Okay. This is important for you. One of the things I want you to have is these are the materials that I have accumulated over 40 years of teaching, where I'm, lecturing almost every day of the week, well, at the university and so forth. And these materials are what you're going to encounter at a university music courses, music theory courses that tell you about how pieces are made. Now, in this particular case, geez, I wish I knew how to, I'm afraid, well, that didn't do it, now it's worse. Let's go back to here. There, okay. I'm going to struggle. But here you see at the top it says Art Ensemble. Can you see that? Art Music Ensemble? Okay. That's what I would suggest you do. Make your own art music ensemble and it will generate opportunities, and the limit is just what you can imagine as being something worth doing with your life. The next area, though, here, it says composition theory. And this composition theory, that is a large collection, and it's all available to you. How do I get there? Okay, got rid of that part. Now, this is one of the files in this composition resources. And Stephen says that he has put this online for you. So any of you can go in there and look at it. I warn you, there's way too much to absorb. But these are resources for you. They're free, and they are really to the point of what goes on in university courses. And so in this case, these composition resources, the first one I'm going to talk about is music theory. I'm doing that time. Okay. This is your fundamental theory course for 20th century music theory, the techniques that you would use. It would include all sorts of things, from information about jazz improvisation, or all of those things. Now, in looking at this, you're not gonna do this all the time, it's just there for you to fall back on. ET stands for ear training. Yeah, there's ear training. It's not so interesting. Next you have things, let me see, this is important. Here, this Casca Materials and Structures of Music is gonna take forever. This file looks too big. It is too big. That's a whole textbook. So let me go back to some other things here. Here's an example of Unit 1. And, oh, no, I should do it this way. There should be a syllabus in here. Where would it be? No. Looks like this maybe? No. Contemporary music theory syllabus. There you go. Now, you can go through this and see what was offered and what those students were studying. And you'll notice things like, this was set up in a chronological way. So I started with different areas, different aesthetic areas, the ones that were early on. In this case, I dealt with Impressionism and jazz, because they share the same language. Debussy's using half diminished seventh chords, jazz players call them minor 7 flat 5. Same chords. 9th chords, 11th chords. And there's information on chord nomenclature so you can decode things. All of that is in there. And you'll notice that this is indicating Unit 1. These are the topics. And, I think, anything. These are interesting things. Modes, natural modes, synthetic modes, all sorts of different things you can use. How many of you know the octatonic scale? Okay. Well, there's some good stuff in there. If you don't know it, it's worth learning to play it. It's a lot of fun. I've played some passages, but I'm not going to. There's too much to cover. But the point is, those are the resources. We go on primitivism, neoclassicism, and neoclassicism and neotonality, where you might cover polychords, polyrhythms, a whole world of exotic things that you can't possibly absorb in the amount of time for this lecture. Just know that these resources are there, and there are a lot of them. So I'm going to go back to another area. Now let's see. I said that there's a top-down and a bottom-up type of thing. For bottom-up composition, often it's worthwhile studying the methods of the standard composers that you perform. How did they write things? Mozart went to school also. He had teachers. We know about those teachers. We know that in his day, people practiced cadences. You had to know your cadences. And the design of the music from one cadence to the next was critical. There's a whole logic. It's been around for years. It's well known. And in this case, you can go through different composers. You want to know more about Mozart? There are a lot of fun things. Or Beethoven, what his style was. Here, Brahms is a good one. And in Brahms, here are scores. And in each case for these, the omnibus progression. That's a good one. Anyway, in each case, here, there's Brahms' guide. Can you see that right where my finger is? Yeah, okay. That would have information about, okay, this, you didn't take this course, but others did. But in this course, we would study Brahms, and we would do a lot of different kinds of analysis, examine it, get an idea of what was being done, and then your task was to create an example of Brahms that could sound like Brahms. Not easy. Some people, rarely, but some people actually just took Brahms and tried to pass it off as their own. There's always somebody, And anyway, so that's what you get out of the composition modeling, and you can see a variety of things. These are the main ones. Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, Brahms, Debussy. They were each selected because there are particular techniques of tonal composition being used. And the tonal composition, that is 1, 4, 5 chords, right? You all know those. So that hierarchy of 6, 2, 5, 1 kind of writing. That's common to all of these, and it doesn't begin to break down till you get to Debussy. And then there are different techniques, and those techniques are discussed. But you would have those techniques, and this is then providing those resources for you. The course that Stephen Cook took, the contemporary composition. This was different, and this one is kind of, well, it's old-fashioned. I mean, this is old now. What's going on now is new, and I talked to Dr. Norby for more current ideas. I have to admit, I'm no longer current on this. But these are ideas that are very truly we've gone through. When I was, 1979, I was playing Stockhausen. How many of you know the music of Stockhausen? That's more than I thought. He was all the rage back in the 70s. Not anymore. Highly dissonant, very complex music. But at any rate, here are different methods of composition. Serialism, meaning like 12 tone, but there's also tonal. You know what I mean by serialization? How many of you know what that means, serialization? Don't all raise your hands together. It means, have you heard of 12-tone music? Maybe, yeah, okay. Serialized music means that you create a series of perhaps pitches. There's information here on creating a series of rhythms, a series of anything, and then you generate a piece by manipulating that series. And pretty soon you build a composition. And again, that's kind of a top-down approach, meaning that you look at the overview and build it. And so it goes with these things. In here we would also see, let me think where that would be. Alternatives in here. Here's an example, I think. Alternatives to normal music notation. Can you see that? This is a more modern looking score. Have any of you seen scores like this at all? These scores are, let me see what you're looking at here. A score like this is, well, this was an ensemble thing. But it shows different ways of notating an idea. And in this case, some of the players or some of the parts are completely improvised. Here, this lower one, this Native American flute, you read across, there's no real bar line there. And the others, there's even less so. But this would demonstrate how you can take a regular score that's printed out in music software and turn it into what we call a proportional score, where you look at it and you say, well, nothing happening here, but it happens over there. My sense is we've moved through the piece together. It's very much improvisational. And those sorts of things can happen with proportional notation. Again, it's another way, as we used to say, it's another way to get the ball across the plate. It's another way to create a musical event, which is what a composer does. So, those are all top-down sorts of ideas. And take a moment and can you imagine a composition yourself? How would you imagine it? I'd like you just to take a moment and jot down a shape, if you would. I think you all have a blank page, right? Do you have a pencil? Take a shot at it. Make a shape and see if it means anything musically to you. Perhaps I'll do one too. Okay. Thanks, that's what I meant. Okay. good as anything else. Now, does it last an hour or a minute? You know, we don't know. But on yours, did you draw something? Well, when you draw something, realize it means something to you, right? It means it's enough for you to remember something. What did I draw? Okay, I drew a gesture. Oops, I can be loud, but a gesture that might be something. That's what it is. Okay. Now, the point is, I have something there now, and it would help me remember what I was doing. Because maybe you're different than I am. I think some of you probably have remarkable memory capacity beyond that. But often I would start writing and I'd get distracted and I'd forget, oh, what was that idea? I always have to laugh. I was working, just on the side, I was working with a violinist. And we were going back and forth over his cadenza, actually. And he came over one day to go through rehearsals, you know, how much have you written, what do you have? And we played through it. He said, I got this great idea. And he said, it's right there. And then I lost it. He said, I can't remember it. I can't get it back. He could never recapture that idea. It broke his heart. And I don't know that he ever remembered what he had. He might have had a better shot at it if he had just anything to look at. And these shapes that I've drawn for you are basically nothing more than something that meant something to you and might help you to retain them. So, all of these are top-down things that we require you to. Yeah, I gotta fill this stuff, kind of improvise to fill it in and so forth. And you would work from this, something like I've drawn there. I might say, okay, well, I've gotten to the end of the piece. My piece ends, not there, but here. And maybe, I'll add a little bit. Something like that. And then I look at that, and then, okay, I'll take another shot at it. What do I remember about it? Well, let's see. The first thing was it was an augmented with C, augmented with 7, 9, and flat 2 on top. Anyway, that sort of thing, I could remember enough what I've done, and that would give me enough to work from. And then, okay, well then I'll sit down, I'll start writing those chords down. Having done that, if I write them down, then I'd also like to see something like that. Now, the next thing is, can I play that in another key? Can I transpose it? Well, that's not an exact transposition. The shape has been transposed. But I can start to find things and manipulate them. And if I write something down, it gives me something to work from. And I'm only trying to accomplish enough to build on tomorrow. So that today I have finished my composition in 30 seconds or less, okay? But it gives me a sense of what it is. Enough so tomorrow, enough so that tomorrow I can come back to it and start filling it in. And I'm not hung up, I'm digress for a moment. I'm not hung up, I'm trying to get the software to write down what I need. I went through the whole evolution. When I started, I had to copy my own music. When computers came along, it was a godsend because I now didn't have to pay a copyist. I could get things done. We made a lot more money that way, actually. It really helped. I could write fast music. I didn't have to worry about all those things. So the computer was very nice, but they gave you the impression that you could compose with the computer and it was your friend, and it isn't. It's a horrible dictator. It's like walking into a jail. You can't do this on the computer. You have to wait until you've gone through, like if this is my first draft, the second draft would be where I'm starting to lay out tonal centers, ideas. The third draft, I might have the meter established. I have a sense of, is it in measures? second draft, I'm filling it out, and I have to have the discipline to stick with it, which I will have if I have a deadline to finish it. You get the, you start being operated by the friends you've committed to. Then, third draft, you're probably getting it to the point where it actually has a certain number of measures. You're understanding what it is. Maybe it's time to orchestrate. This is about the time that I think a computer becomes, personally, or I think a computer becomes useful, because I can say, okay, I've got a brass section, they're going to all play the same line in thirds or in parallel fourths or something, and I can just copy and paste and get it done fast. That's great. Computers are good for that. And when it's all done, you print out the parts, and then people point all your mistakes out. But that will take care of it. Now, that's all in terms of what we think of as top-down type of stuff, where you know the big picture. Let me get into some other things here. Now, I guess I just want to say for a moment here, with the top-down, when you get into the second draft, that's when we start dealing with this, consider tempo and meter. You might have ideas about that already. On that little sketch you had, do you have any sense what tempo you might have for your little drawing? Does it have tempo? Does it have a feel? Is it expressive? Can you play that fragment musically? That might give you an idea of what your meter is, and ultimately what your piece will be. On this list is also available to you on Stephen's website there. These are things you might consider, different harmony, meters, and this is a list of possibilities, because it's fun to think, I'll try this time, or this way. You can experiment with it. And then again, top down. It said use a span diagram. Should I show you span diagrams? I wonder if I have some here. I'm going to come back to that. No, hang on, that's it. Well, here. A span diagram can be useful. This is, if you can see it, add a bit of, you see where it's Mozart K333? Yeah. This is like the piece that every music student analyzes. This is the fundamental for form and analysis. It appears in almost every form book ever written, because it's a good, it has many examples that are very good in the way it works. Now we're getting into things that are usually occurring in tonal music. So let's talk about tonal music for a minute. Here, you can see, can you see these things well enough? Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can translate some of this. It says at the top, exposition. You see that? Okay. Contrasting period. Apparently I thought it was parallel and changed my mind. It says P for primary theme, T for transition, S for second theme. In the primary theme, in Mozart, this is what he was building. We're in the key of B flat. I don't bother writing out individual harmonies. I can put that on music, that's fine. It's good to study harmony at that level to understand how to use it. There are courses that will teach you to do things like that are very useful. How many of you could play, create a progression, a harmonic progression for yourself? For instance, 2, 6, 1, 6, 4, 5, 7, 1. Does that sound familiar? Okay. Yeah. Now the point, what am I getting at? The point there is that extended or not extended. But here is something that's very fundamental in tonal music. This you'll see, and I think you have, yeah, you have little span analysis grids. I think. Yeah. Something like this. Each space on that represents one major. And if we want to study Brahms or Mozart or Debussy, anybody, Stravinsky, I have those for Stravinsky too. One thing you can do and should do, and it will help you with your performance. If you want to improve your memory, if you want to know what to do when you're on stage and you forget where it goes, how many of you have that experience? Come on. It's pretty common. But you need to have this very clear picture in mind of what's going on. And you can do that by laying out in any piece of music what's going on. Let's take a look again at Mozart because it's so straightforward. Where's my, here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 bars. And the 4-bar phrase is the fundamental thing that you work with. And you could see that he's doing things. The thing that's always true, oops, come on. Okay. The thing that's always true is that at the end of four bars, there was going to be a cadence that ended on the 5 chord or ended on the tonic chord, but it was a must-do situation. The cadences in tonal music were always, you're gonna not like this when I say it, but were always defined by these cadences, tonic or dominant. And of course, people say, I know an exception to that. Yes, yes you do. The interesting thing is that when theorists talk about it, or when people writing about music talk about it, they're pretty consistent and always referring to a pause on either a tonic or a dominant chord. Can you end on the subdominant? Yes, you can, but they're exceptions. They're not common. And in the most common case, these composers were going to create 4 bars, 4th bar ends on a cadence, either tonic or dominant, full cadence, half cadence, perfect cadence. These things, and then things start happening, and this is where things change from popular music to classical music. Take a look at the second phrase. Now, if you're with me on this, you realize we're just diagramming here what was done. If I call this measures 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4. When Mozart writes it, he writes 1, 2, how does he do that? 1, 2, and I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't quite remember. Yeah, or it could be 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 2. Yeah. That was this 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. That was his method of extending. So these 2 measures were repeated. Now, if you do that on a pop song, you're going to lose the guys that are learning these songs by memory. If you do that in a blues progression, no one knows what you're doing. It's all out the window because in classical music, you're dealing with irregular forms. In the music you guys are playing, you're probably dealing in irregular forms. And if you go into popular music, the forms become very regular. The blues progression is, I don't know what percentage, very high percentage. Folk music varies some, but not a great deal. And the reason for that is that it has to be transmitted by the oral tradition. You have to hear it, and then remember it, and then recreate it. Well, it's easier to remember if you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4 bars. You know, you play blues, I know that on bar 5 we're going to the subdominant. How many of you know a blues progression, by the way? classical musician should know this. She'll be more popular at parties. On New Year's, this is what I was playing with drummers, just kill time. 12-bar blues, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If you've never seen this before, can you see my number 12?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the way it goes. In C, this is going to be C7. Measure 5 is going to be F7. Measure 7 is going to be C7. Measure 9 is going to be G7, F7, G, and then C7. And you can either stop and stay in that chord, or you can do what they use and turn around. Go to G and go back. And the interesting thing here, it doesn't really fit a single scale, but you've got that is the blues scale, and so 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. You're going to go here. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you go back here. And you're going to here, and then you go to here. The next chord to there, and finally you're back. Okay, that's fundamental, and most of the music that you hear in pop music is of that ilk. But I don't think that's why you're in this room, to play the pop music, although you should not be intimidated by it. It's generally pretty easy to do. It's not easy to do well, I admit that, and there are a lot of other things going on. But what you are doing is, the forms are far more complicated. And from things like when we examine closely what Mozart's doing, we can see this sort of activity that is more akin to starting to build things from the bottom up. I will try and build, well, what he does, he'll build a motive. What is a motive in music? Da-da-da-dum. Okay, it's always considered at least 2 pitches and an identifiable rhythm. Pick another piece. Give me you want to give me a motive, or I can't think of it.
Beethoven 5.
There you go. That's what he just did.
Didn't I just do that?
Jingle bells.
You pick it. Da-da-da-da-da. It's right there. Da-da-da. Dee-dee-dee. Da-da-da. That's a motive. And that motive has identity. It means that we can say that and another human being hears it, comprehends it as a unit. So if we were to do this, let's do something a little more fun here. Each of you has a name, right? Come on. Okay. Take your name and create your own motive. Would you do that? Finish it. Bring it down. Yeah. I think you have that sheet. So, yeah. Now, what I've given you comes out of one of the lessons I had with my composition teacher. You see it? With my composition teacher, I can't remember what we were talking about. I said something, and he said, "Oh, don't you ever play at parties?" I said, "No, I don't know what to play at a party." And he said, "Oh, for Pete's sake, you have, if you're called on, then you have to do something quickly, especially if you're a composer. You're supposed to be able to generate." He said, "Just ask someone in the audience for their name." Incidentally, Steve and I both know a guy that's very good at this. Ask them for their name and convert their name to a motive. Now what you do is you take the letters of your name and notice what numbers come by them. The interesting thing is we talk about 12 tones of music, but we cheat. We repeat the C at the top. So you have the 12 different pitches, and then the C repeats at the top. That gives you 13 pitches. And there are 26 letters in the Latin alphabet. So if you go through it twice, there you go. So can you do that and generate your own motive? Okay. C? Okay. Letter J would be an A. And N is always down here. J, no, A. Oh, this is interesting. The A and the N are the same pitches. And the E is a funny letter. E is always E. It comes out the same. Where's T? It's F sharp. Oh, that's gonna be a little strange. Okay. What did I say? J-A-N-E-T. Yeah, okay. So, for my wife's motive, I think that's an apt description. Always a little bit And how did it start on? What was it? I can't see.
A-C-C-E-F.
A-C-C-E-F. Or what happens is that you can start playing with it. Now, there are so many different ways to harmonize anything, and I've given you all sorts of different methods. What I was doing right there was that was tertian harmony. Tertian harmony means harmony built on thirds. That was tertian harmony with some elements of a whole tone scale. You know what a whole tone scale is? Can't be better. There's your whole tone scale. So, that's one approach. Now, another approach would be to use, I'm going to harmonize this in fourths. And, okay. Now, the leaps are awkward, but I'll make sure that every note is from a projection of fourths. And I might come with everything is in fourths, and you can see it changes a lot. But we work from that. So, with this in mind, then, you have your own name and your own set of things. You could start expanding on that. And this is where we get into the next stage. I'm going to watch my time a little bit. Oh, yeah, we're almost done. Let me go to another sheet. I hope I have it. Yeah, here, this is my girl. At this stage, it's time to jump to some, we have those lists of motivic development. You know, I think I'm gonna have to go back. I think it's in your book here. Looking for it. Should be in here. Sentence form, hierarchy of form, proportional span picker, one second down, hierarchy of form. That's that one. Oh, here's musical terms. It was, phrase, I think it's in this one. Oh, I think actually it's in the, hang on. Yeah, actually it's on that first page of it. It's right here. But I'm talking about bottom-up analysis. Take a look at this for a minute. You have a motor in front of you. But that's not quite true. You have a set of pitches in front of you. What rhythm would you like to play those in? Take a look at it. You don't have to sing the right pitch. You got to sing the right rhythm. And that's a good thing. I'm talking to pianists here. Pianists, over the length of my career, I've noticed pianists usually have an excellent sense of rhythm. Da-da-da-da. They can Well, but singers is a different thing. Anyway, all of you are instrumentalists, and rhythm is, you're used to seeing someone show you, there's the beat, now play the rhythm with it. You're going to have to be able to write rhythms, and there's no shortcut to that. Just do it, enjoy it, think about it. You're doing it already, just keep practicing. But you would add a rhythm to your set of pitches. You want to do that now? Take a moment, write a rhythm, just a little bit of a rhythm. Don't kill yourself on this, okay? Here, here's what I was doing. Okay. And for mine, I'm going to add a double rhythm. I'm going to double some of the notes here. I'm going to go ding, ding on that. Ding, ding, ding. Okay. If you can see that, as an example, and I'm running out of time, but as an example, I just added rhythms to that, and now that motive becomes. Whoops, wrong place there. That's it, okay. Now I have a motive. I have pitches, and I have a rhythm. It could be even less based on this. I could fragment it and use just a portion of it. You know, that could be. And that would become a rhythm and be a motive, and that's repeated. And you start doing things with it. The question is, what do you do with it? And what you do with it should be here. And this is where we'll stop today. Can you see this? Yeah. Take a look at this. The first thing I'm telling you is in shorthand. In shorthand, you would sketch a musical shape that you want to fill. You work with pitches like you've done. Do something with that. Then, the first thing you can, any of these you can do, please. Transposition, fragmentation. Oh, here, I can see this. Yeah. So, transposition, fragmentation, retrogrades, all of those are ways to develop your idea. And when you're developing your idea, you're starting to build a measure. Then you put the measures together, you play for a while, and then there's a pause. There's a phrase. You've built a phrase. Congratulations. If you can build a phrase, you'll finish the piece. Because you can take that phrase, you can repeat it, you can play it backwards. A lot of times playing a phrase, you can play it backwards and it can serve as the second theme. A lot of people have done that. Or invert it. Here are some quickies. I'm fragmenting. Okay, and that can be. That was transposed, then inverted. So that up goes down, and so forth. And you can build on that, and build on it, and build on it. And then you can just say, you know, I want to write this piece. I don't have much time. Let's say that I'm going to work on just right side up, upside down, and transpositions for 3 minutes, and call it a piece. And then you've written your first piece. So that's how you compose. Okay. Do you have any questions? We're at 1 hour, I believe. Are we not?
I think that's
Okay. No questions?